Hello crafty friends, it's Jess from jesscrafts.com, and today I'm here with the Valentine's card. I know it's pretty early for a Valentine's card, but I don't know, I needed a break from the holiday crafting and just wanted to kind of mix things up. So I'm using this two stamp sets from Neat and Tangled. I have my favorite nut, and I'm only using that for the word Valentine, just because I want this to be a little bit more explicitly a Valentine's card. I'm going to donate this card, and I decided to go with the dinosaur, the Prehistoric collection. And so there's a dinosaur and it says, "You are dynamite." And so my sentiment will say, "You are dynamite, Valentine." And they're also the "You make my heart soar," which would be a cute sentiment as well. So if you only had this stamp set, or you could just do the "You are dynamite." It doesn't have to say Valentine. And then I'm going to stamp this with VersaFine ink onto Canson XL watercolor paper using the VersaFine ink. I think I said that. And the watercolor paper is cut with the Wonky stitched hearts from Scrappiness. So I cut out a bunch of them because I know that I want to make more than one. And I am just kind of positioning everything on my Misty the way that I like it. I'm just going to use the sort of standard dinosaur there just because I thought he worked best with the card. And I want the dynamite sentiment to make sense. You could, of course, if you want a more elaborate card, stamp one of those little prehistoric people, the little like caveman kiddos here, and add them to the scene. But I thought I'd try to keep it simple, and my thought process here is this is a great gender neutral Valentine, so you know, boys and girls both will enjoy the sentiment. And my plan, even though I probably want to go back and fix that E there, good thing it's in my Misty, is to put it on a background piece of paper that I also watercolor and hang off the heart a little bit. So that's why I'm stamping a little bit more towards the left, because I'm pretty sure I want this to be hanging off the final card. So I'm going to fix that up and stamp a bunch of other panels. While my stamping is drying, I wanted to paint some background panels. So I recently got these Kaptron Waterbrush pens on Amazon, and it was a pretty reasonable price for the amount that you get, and you get a variety. So I was happy with that, and I wanted to, you know, try them out and see if I liked the control of these water brushes better than some of the ones I've used in the past. And I also liked the sizes. The fine detail is what I know I'll use to color in critters a lot, but I also liked being able to get a super wide one in the same set. So as you can see, that's quite a big brush, and I think it's going to allow me to paint backgrounds pretty easily too, which I like. And it definitely has, so far, I've seen pretty good control with it in terms of, you know, you really have to push the button down to make sure that water comes out, otherwise it's sealing pretty well. So I'm going to use my Gansai Tambi watercolors. I want to just paint this background a simple red gradient, and maybe I'll also add some shimmer to it. So I can get the water flowing in my pen here by pressing, and I see the water starting to come out. I like being able to really have good control with the amount of water. In the past, that's why I haven't used water brushes as much. I think it can be helpful to get your paper wet if you want the color to be moving around a lot. If you want a more concentrated color, then you probably want to go with a dry brush. So now I'm going to go pick up some color from my palette, squeeze my brush into my palette to activate that. So this is a very pale color because I chose to get my paper wet first. If you're looking for something darker, definitely choose instead to go with a dry piece of background paper. So I actually switched to the other red. I wasn't quite sure which red was which, and I need to look closer to the color numbers. Here we go. I want this deeper red, and then I want to kind of fade out to the pink colors. So I'm going in and I'm using some different colors of the Gansai Tambi reds and pinks. Their reds get pink really fast. I find a lot of their reds have, quite a bit of pink in them. So if you're not, I don't know, if you're looking for a more pure red color, you might want to choose a different collection of watercolors. Although in terms of the way they lay down, I'm perfectly happy with them. I'm going to go back and add that pink at the bottom. Trying to keep it somewhat distinct, yet also blended. So like I want it to be clear there's more than one color, because you really could blend it out such that it doesn't look like, it kind of like all looks more one color. But I want you to know that there are some areas that we're using one color there. So here what I'm experiencing, this is all me, is I'm touching the sides of the paper and it is not making color go all the way to the edge, which I had wanted because I had already cut down my paper. So I might recommend not cutting your paper down until later. So that did a pretty good job. I was able to really control the flow of water by pushing the button when I wanted more and letting it dry out as I wanted less. I could see also maybe keeping a towel nearby if you wet it a little bit more than you want. But and then I can move on. I would, if I were like not filming this, I would paint all my backgrounds at one time, and then I would go back and go through all of my dinosaurs and paint them all together. So now I need to clean off my brush. As you can see, I was able to squeeze and that flowed water through, and it's cleaning up pretty nicely. Although actually I'm going to use a different brush to color my dinosaur, so I probably could have left this, but I just kind of wanted to show you how simple it makes cleaning off your brush. And you could just have a towel beside you and not necessarily need a cup of water, because you could just squeeze it into the towel because it's small amounts of water at one time. Alright, so moving on to the dinos. I did swatch my Gansai Tambi watercolors, so I know, kind of what to expect when I dip into the paints. I think I want to keep it kind of traditional and paint him green. I'm going to choose my smallest Kaptron water brush and just kind of wanted to make sure the flow was good. I pushed pretty hard on there, the flow came right out, and I have a little pool of water that I could work with if I wanted. If I want to kind of draw the water back, I just need to kind of wipe it on my towel, and that would make it drier if I want a little bit more control. See, I do tend to like painting the whole dinosaur a light color and then going back with a darker color to paint the spots, just because it means that the first time through, as I color him, I don't have to paint around the spots if I'm just going to color them with a darker color. So I'll go in with one of the lightest greens, kind of a lime green. Lime green I think is fun for Valentine's Day. What I think is nice about Valentine's Day is really you can use any color, and if you just pair it with a little bit of red or pink, it comes off as Valentine. But lighter colors tend to work really well, light and also bright colors. I guess some of the, I don't know how you call it, like the darker tone colors, like dark turquoise or mauve maroon, those might not come off quite as Valentine-y. But I want to keep the colors really pretty and, really bright and fun for kids, because these are kid Valentines. So I'm just going to be able to quickly fill it in. I like being able to control the water by dipping it if I want. If I want a little bit more water, I can just squeeze the brush and control it. A little bit easier than having a, cup of water next to me, and then I don't have to worry about dropping my cup of water, or accidentally drinking my paint water. Not that I've ever actually drank it. I try to keep it, when I do use paint water, in a much more obvious cup, like a silly cup that I never, and it's always in the same cup, so that when I have my coffee on my desk, I don't drink from paint water thinking it, or grab the paint water thinking it's my coffee. I've definitely done that before, like grabbed the paint water and then stopped myself. I don't know if that's ever happened to you guys, but if you're, if you like warm drinks when you're crafting, tea, cocoa, whatever, and painting, let me know in the comments. Am I the only one who's ever almost drank paint water? I hope nobody's ever actually drank paint water. That would be such a bummer. So now I'm gonna go in and I'm going to try to add a little bit of shading. You certainly don't have to. And to get shading with watercolor, it's more just about laying on extra paint than using different colors. Like you can get, like that dark green and this lighter green are all from the same color. I'm not dipping into two different paints in my palette. I'm using the same one. And I find it's easier to add shading if you have, if you let the layers dry in between, then you can layer on some darker color. But if it's still pretty wet, it's a lot harder to add in more color. The color just kind of fades to whatever color it already is. You want to give it a second to dry, or hit it with your heat gun in between different rounds. I'm not going to do that just because, that would be a little bit longer and probably kind of annoying for you guys to keep hearing the heat gun in between each layer, but that's something that you could certainly do. Stop in between and add it. And this won't be the most elaborate coloring that I've ever done, just because, again, it's a kid's card and I'm doing it just for a little bit of interest more than anything else. Come add a little shading to the top here. And then I do want to let it dry before I go in and paint over the spots, because if I paint over the spots right away while they're still wet, again, the color is going to come back quite a bit, and I want it to be a much brighter color. Okay. So, again, you could just dry it really quickly with a heat gun. Save yourself a bit of time. Try not to stick your finger in it like I just did. Try to fix that up real quick. I tend to paint on my fingers a lot. Like if I'm trying, like if I need to get a little color off, I'll just color it off onto my finger. But maybe you want to keep a cloth nearby if you don't like getting as messy. Then I'm going to actually go to the palette and get a darker color. Again, I can just push that button on these Kaptron water brushes and that will flow out and get you some paint kind of going in your palette over there. When you're done working with your watercolor paints, I usually let them completely dry before closing the cap. I think that's probably a good practice overall. I do experience some cracking of the palettes with the Gansai Tambi watercolors. It's never affected the way they paint in the future, so I'm not super worried about it. But that will happen as you get them really wet and then let them dry. I'm not getting my paint, I'm not soaking the entire watercolor palette. I'm just dotting some color up, and I'll pull my color palette over in a second so you can see what I mean, but I'm not like soaking the whole pan, that's the word for it, the pan of watercolor, because I don't need the entire pan to be wet. And if you find you're trying to get the color darker like I was over here a second ago, it's not coming, again, you just want to dry it in between. Probably want to add a little bit of color there to his toenails. I don't really know what color they would be. I think I'm just going to paint them green to match, just to kind of limit the number of colors, but I'd just go maybe a little bit lighter with this dark green. Right. So, maybe not the most sophisticated watercoloring ever, but just a quick demonstration. And also, again, with cards for kids, like, I don't think you have to spend half an hour coloring your image unless that's what you really want to do. I mean, I love coloring, so I can spend a really long time coloring an image on a card that, you know, maybe will be tossed out the next day, and that's fine by me because I was doing it for the joy of coloring. So now my pink red-ish panel is dry, and I can add my dinosaur to it. Noticing that looks a little bit splotchy. I prefer it to be smoother. It's nice, again, water brush here, so I can get a little bit of water flowed easily and have water on hand when I want it. I don't have to go, you know, fill up the cup. I can have them sitting full at my desk because, again, if you turn them over, they're not leaking in my experience. All right, so I'm ready to adhere that down, and then I could put it on a card. But I thought about adding shimmer earlier, and I think that could be fun, but the only thing is not every place you donate allows you to add shimmer. So I would definitely check the guidelines before doing something like that, and maybe I'll go back and add some depending on what it is. But now I can make a set of quick, fast cards because, again, I could just go through and do all the backgrounds at once, all the dinosaurs at once. And this watercoloring is a lot faster than the way that I Copic color anyway. So I'll tape that down, trim off the edges. Love how fast the ATG is. I think that's another way to make card making quicker. I used to use some different adhesives in the past, and I found that sometimes just assembling the card took longer, waiting for things to dry, etc., etc. Again, I think it's easier to glue down whatever you're adhering and then turn it over and cut it out versus trying to measure it exactly first. Now, the other nice thing about watercolors versus Copics is I have a touch of green here, and it's a lot easier to remove this than it is to remove Copics. You can just add water until you get rid of the color. So again, I would just probably pull in a clean brush that I know that was clean, and scribble that out, or you can use your sand eraser, which with the Copics, of course, or alcohol markers, you could use the colorless blender or rubbing alcohol and get it out. But watercolors, I find, is more forgiving for a newbie crafter. All right, so that's it for my card today. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you're interested in more crafting tutorials, be sure to subscribe to my channel. I'm going to leave links in the video description below to some of the products I talked about, like the Neat and Tangled stamps, the Kaptron watercolor pens, and the Gansai Tambi. So have an awesome day. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.